folks. How are you? Well, I tell you what to be on the lookout for here. Endless apologies. The urging by the president's cohorts for endless apology. Just keep apologizing. We think the president's mood can have an effect on this. That's what they're trying to tell us. And they may be right, given the status of our culture at this point. The president's mood may have an impact on the eventual outcome here. Hope not, but it could. We're also hearing, it's not fair, the president deserves to see the report before the people do. It isn't fair. Richard Gephardt just said the president has the right to know what's in Starr's report before it's released to the public. Now, exactly which right is he talking about? There is no such right expressed in the Constitution. It's not in the Independent Counsel Act. There's nothing in there, folks, that says the president in an impeachment hearing or anything like this has a right to see this. No criminal defendant has a right to see the indictment before it's handed up or down, depending on your perspective. And we've had the president's defenders, Alan Dershowitz et al., saying, hey, this is nothing more than a criminal indictment. It's to be disregarded. It's just one man's opinion, blah, 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 blah. We want to see it. It isn't fair, and you got to go and see it first. They just want to continue their opportunity to spin it. Now, the president has the right to give his explanation for his conduct as part of the impeachment process. He's got that right. There's no question about it. Now, this president used his office and phony claims of executive privilege and attorney-client privilege and Secret Service privilege and presidential immunity to stop this entire process from getting to this point. They did everything they could to subvert the legal process to make sure we didn't arrive at this day. They wanted to keep you, the public, in the dark. They, the president and David Kendall and everybody else up at the White House, know better than anybody else what's in this report because they're the one that committed the acts that may indeed be criminal and subject to impeachment. They know what's in there. They don't need to see this. They want to see what's in it so they know what they've got to lie about. What the president and his hitmen want is an opportunity to undermine and derail the constitutional impeachment process before it even has a chance to take hold. That's what this pleading from Gephardt and John Lewis and everybody, we want the president, want to see the report. Tell you something else to be on the lookout for, ladies and gentlemen. There are 36 boxes, right? How long is it going to be before somebody says, that's $1 million a box out here. I've been telling you people $40 million in 4 years. But look at every box. Just think it's $1 million of your money in every one of them boxes up there. That's all you got to think of is $1 million of money thrown down at bad money, good money, but it's my gumbo. It's not worth anything out there. I'm telling you what, it's just waste the whole money. 36 million boxes and 36 boxes. And you got $1 million a box out there. That's what's on there. That's all that's in there. And it's a waste of money. So be prepared for that. It is ironic, though, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Because we've been hearing how the president has this ability to compartmentalize. He has the ability to put things in a box. You're going to put a box over here and a box over there. Well, there is his presidency in all of those boxes. So we have, as usual, quite a bit to do today. And I want to lead off here with some sound bites that trouble me. Two of them by the Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, that were delivered just this morning around 10 o'clock Eastern Time, followed up by Henry Hyde. I have an analysis of those comments, and then we're going to be talking to Robert Barr, a congressman from Georgia, who was the first to file an impeachment inquiry. Long before the Lewinsky matter even came up, Congressman Barr was concerned about other transgressions, predominantly the fundraising scandal. But first, let's, and I want to play these sound bites to you and for you because I've got warning buzzers going off. I got red flags going up. I've told you for the past couple of weeks that the American people will not tolerate any effort to hide this material, to keep this material from people. Now, you may have heard this morning going to release all this. That's not what I'm hearing. They're going to release some of it, but they're not going to release the evidence, and the evidence will speak for itself. Starr has done a brilliant thing here. He sent up his report. He sent up the outline. He sent up the referral, and he sent up his analysis, and that totals about 445 pages. He also sent what's in those boxes is the evidence. What's in those boxes are the tapes. The tapes of the president's grand jury testimony, the Linda Tripp, Monica Lewinsky tapes, those tapes are in there. And what Starr has done is said, all right, look, here's my referral, here's my outline, here's my analysis, but here's the evidence, too. You decide. If you don't like my take here, you decide what it is. And getting this up there, this was supposed to go up there Friday. It went up there yesterday after Starr got Kendall's letter. He said, all right, I've had it with this guy. I'm sending it up there, and it's now, I'm out of it. This is now David Kendall and his legalese versus the Congress. Here is Mr. Newt this morning talking about how members of the House must conduct themselves during debate, what they can and cannot say about the president during this process.
Members engaging in debate must abstain from language that is personally offensive toward the president, including references to various types of unethical behavior. Rulings in this Congress, which will be annotated in the accompanying Section 370 of the House Rules and Manual, include references to alleged criminal conduct. This documented restriction extends to referencing extraneous material personally abusive of the president that would be improper if spoken as the member's own words. Occupants of the chair in this Congress and in prior Congresses have consistently adhered to this principle regarding the present and past presidents. While several rulings by the chair in this Congress may have predated certain public acknowledgments by the president, and while the standard in Jefferson's manual has been held not to apply in the other body, it is essential that the constraint against such remarks in ordinary debate continue to apply in the House.
All right, there you have it. So you can't say anything bad about the president. Members of the House cannot say anything bad about the president during this debate. Got to save that for committee. Can't say it on the floor of the House. Cannot say anything bad about the president of the United States. Here's Newt again.
In addition to relying on the precedents of the House, the chair would comment on the importance of comity and integrity of debate in the House in an electronic age. Debates in the House were not broadcast by radio or television before 1978. There were correspondingly fewer occasions when members were called to order for improper personal references to presidents. In 1974, there were no allegations of personal misconduct on the part of the president called to order on the floor before or during proceedings in executive session of the Committee on the Judiciary. Indeed, it is only during the actual pendency of proceedings in impeachment as the pending business on the floor of the House that remarks in debate may include references to personal misconduct on the part of the president. While an inquiry is underway in committee, the committee is the proper forum for examination and debate of such allegations. In the meantime, it is incumbent on the House to conduct its other business, again quoting from the action of the House in 1909, in an orderly manner and without unnecessarily and unduly exciting animosity among its members or antagonism from those other branches of the government with which the House is correlated. Close quote. This is not to say that the president is beyond criticism in debate or that members are prohibited from expressing opinions about executive policy or competence to hold office. It is permissible in debate to challenge the president on matters of policy. The difference is one between political criticism and personally offensive criticism.
I have some analysis of this after the break, but it does appear to me here that the Speaker of the House is going out of his way to show the Democrats that, hey, we can be nice guys. See, we're not going to be unfair. We can be bipartisan. We can be nice. We expect similar treatment from you guys someday in the future. Ha, ha, ha. What this sounds like to me is that we got the coffin halfway shut, but we got no nails, and even if we had them, we don't have the guts to hammer them. Here's Henry Hyde discussing, ladies and gentlemen, what parts of the report will be released and what will not be.
There are other parts that will not be readily disseminated, but will be put under review. Those consist of an appendices and some 36 boxes of material. That's half of that. We have two sets. They're duplicate. Now, the reason is that the independent counsel wrote the Speaker and said many of the supporting materials, that's the appendices, those are 6 binders, and the other boxes contain information of a personal nature, and I respectfully urge the House to treat as confidential. What we want is a short period of time to review those to see if there are things that should be deleted, such as people who are not involved, their reputations, whatever. We want to take a look at it in a bipartisan way. That means Democrats and Republicans will go over it. Mr. Solomon is suggesting a week or 10 days for this summary review process with a view towards releasing all of it insofar as we can, unless we agree that some portions should not see the light of day because of innocent people's reputations and that sort of thing.
So we're going to release the summary, the outline. We're going to release the actual report, the narrative, and we're going to release Starr's analysis, which is 445 pages. But this other stuff, the tapes and the evidence, we're going to listen to that real carefully. We got to make sure that innocent people here are not harmed and damaged. And we're going to do this in a bipartisan way. Now, this troubles me. Because I know what bipartisan means here. Bipartisan means the Democrats are going to say don't release any of it. They're going to say it all injures innocent people because all the Democrats involved here are innocent. President's innocent, everybody else is innocent. You can't do this, Mr. Hyde. You can't release this stuff. And we're going to have all these... The debate, I'm afraid, is going to end up on whether or not the Republicans are being fair about this. This has nothing to do with the Republicans. None of this has a smidgen of anything to do with the Republicans. This is all about the president and an abuse of power and perjury, witness tampering, and the sort of thing that we've all know that this report contains. So, after hearing this today, I said, well, this doesn't sound good. Because I think the evidence will speak for itself. I've always have thought that. Just let it go. It's our government. I'll have an analysis, an in-depth analysis of this when we come back, and then we'll talk to Bob Barr. Take a break here, folks. Rush Limbaugh. This is the EIB Network. The phone number, if you want in on all this, 800-282-2882.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Let's go to the sports desk for Hightower Radio's Wide, 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 Wild World of Sports. Today's feature, Bud Selig, the Bush Leaguer who now holds the title Commissioner of Baseball. Folks in Wisconsin know Bud as the Pirate. As the multimillionaire owner of the Milwaukee Brewers, he has long tried to force the city and state to build him a new stadium at taxpayers' expense. Bud is notorious among us serious baseball fans, too. We know him as the Bonehead, the guy who not only owned the Brewers, but also was the acting baseball commissioner in 1994 who canceled the World Series. Bonehead Bud and his fellow owners canceled the series for a very worthy cause, their own greed. They were trying to get money from the players, so they locked them out, along with us fans. Proving that stupidity is self-perpetuating, baseball's team owners have recently elevated Selig from acting commissioner to actual commissioner, even though this post is supposed to be independent, filled by someone who represents not just the owners, but also the fans and the players. So what has Bud just done as his first major act as commissioner? He's announced that ticket prices to the World Series will double. To get a box seat, you'll now pay $150. A reserve seat, which is what a lot of families prefer, has been jacked up to $100 each. Even the humble bleacher seats, which are located far away from the action, yet allow folks of modest means to enjoy the national pastime, are now priced at $40. What Bud has done is to price most Americans out of the game. His rationale? People felt very strongly that the World Series ticket prices had been undervalued, said the baseball commissioner. Of course, the people he meant are the owners, certainly not us fans. This is Jim Hightower saying, what a bonehead.
I just had to carry my faithful old dog up the steps, and that got me thinking about why we're so devoted to these creatures. I'm Steve Roberts, and this is the ABC News Journal. Abner is a basset hound, 13 years old now, and he's definitely showing his age. The steps to the second floor are a real challenge. He smells terrible and looks worse, and we spend a lot of time on our hands and knees cleaning up after him. Yet the thought of losing him pierces me with pain, and we've rejected outright the gentle suggestion that it's time to put him to sleep. Our vet, a lovely man, agrees with the decision, at least for now, and says cheerfully, Abner doesn't know how bad he looks. If he still enjoys every day, just keep him comfortable. So as Abner sprawls on the floor just behind my chair, snoozing away, I wonder why I'm so devoted to this beast. He's not pretty or handsome. In fact, he's downright goofy looking. Intelligence has never been a strong point with Abner, and when you throw him a ball, he just looks bewildered. The only time he shows any zip at all these days is when he's turning over the garbage cans looking for food. In truth, life would be a lot simpler without him. No odors, no messes, no dog sitters when we leave town. But there is one other thing. Abner simply loves us without limits, without conditions, without doubts, and we love him back the same way. How many things in life can be that plain and that pure? I'm Steve Roberts, ABC News.
Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh and the EIB Network. You've just heard that the president, or that the Speaker of the House, has limited the remarks concerning the president on the floor of the House by members. He did not, of course, limit the comments that could be made during the Judiciary Committee's proceedings, but during House debate and during special orders, there are now restrictions on what members can say. Shortly after the Speaker made his remarks, Congressman Jim Traficant from Ohio stood up and asked what had become of the First Amendment. He was not aware, he said, that the First Amendment had become a mechanism to shield truth. Anyway, it appears, and I haven't spoken to the Speaker about this, but it appears that the Speaker may be confusing personal attacks with legitimate criticism and inquiry. Now, if he's talking about name-calling and personal vilification, and I can understand that, there's no place for that on the House floor, and there never has been, and there's no need to start that now. But at the same time, members of the House have to be free to question the conduct of the president and the White House generally. They have to be free to express their views on all aspects of the president's conduct. It's the president's behavior that violates decorum, not the commentary that does so. I mean, understandably, discussing the president's behavior here is unseemly, but it's the president's behavior itself that is the violation, not the commentary of that behavior. Now, if I'm hearing this correctly, and members of Congress are being silenced because of history and rules and so forth, and I admit to being a bit troubled by it. On the one hand, members of Congress face incredible pressures from the White House and the media, not to mention Clinton's private detectives and scorched earth strategy. They're not supposed to go out and mention that. On the other hand, our elected representatives are admonished when they dare to speak publicly on the floor of the House to conduct themselves in a way that would be proper. The president here is allowed to do whatever he wants to do, to say whatever he wants about anyone, to hire private eyes to go out and dredge up dirt on people and then threaten them with it, perhaps. And yet members of the House have been told today to stand silent on all this. Now, if the House leadership wants to limit the right of members to express their views during this historically important period, it should be put to the vote of a whole House on whether individual members should be silenced this way. I mean, this sounds like gagging. If I'm hearing this right, I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong, but it sounds like gagging, and this is not the time to start gagging people. Especially if the reason here is simply to show our liberal friends that we can be fair, that we can be bipartisan, that we can be nice. Especially if we're trying to show the American people we have no intention of starving their children or poisoning their air and water. Now, as you know, I have been saying for several days that the House leadership must release this report to the public immediately. And what I meant when I spoke of the report, I meant the evidence as well. I meant everything. If there is some limited evidence that shouldn't be released because it may damage a future prosecution, then, okay, reserve that information for trial. But the rest should be released immediately. I'm talking about all of the taped evidence, the president's videotaped grand jury testimony, Linda Tripp's 20 hours of audio tapes, Monica Lewinsky's home answering machine tapes. I can't believe that the release of this information would compromise any future prosecution, and I don't see how it compromises anybody who's innocent. The citizens have a right to see and hear the evidence firsthand, untainted and unencumbered by analysis and commentary and spin. For once, let the American people hear this stuff that's been collected. All we've gotten for the past 7 months is spin about all this. All we've gotten is analysis. All we've gotten is wild guesses. All we've gotten is a leak here and a leak there. And sources close to the investigation say, and sources close to the White House say, well, the hell with all that. It's time to hear the meat and potatoes. John Adams, one of our founding fathers, said it, and I'm going to paraphrase. We, the people, have a right to know about the character and conduct of our rulers. It's from the Federalist Papers. And that means we also have a right to know how each of our elected representatives conducts himself or herself when confronted with this information. Now, if you want to talk politics about this, I'm going to tell you right now, the fastest way the Republican leadership can lose momentum and turn off its base is to willingly join Democrats like Gephardt and John Lewis and David Bonnier and set up some rules that are intended to keep a lid on this information and subvert a free and open discussion in Congress and the public. So we're going to withhold some of the evidence. We're going to limit what can be said about this on the floor of the House of Representatives, all because the Democrats supposedly say that constitutes fairness. Right now, the Republican grassroots, I've written about it in the current issue of the Limbaugh letter. I've been talking about it for weeks on this program. The Republican grassroots is ready to turn out and vote in droves. The battleground poll that was released this Tuesday shows the same thing. Republican voters at the base level cannot wait to get out there and pull those levers. But if the Republican leadership gives the grassroots no reason to turn out, it's going to lose its power. Now, legally, the same special division of 3 judges who ruled in 1993 that the Iran-Contra report must be made public. And that report included over 650 references to secret grand jury testimony. The same special division of 3 judges who made that ruling apparently ruled that Starr could release his impeachment report to Congress. He went back in June or July and got this, very quietly. And he also got permission to include grand jury information in his release. So let's make clear first and foremost that the usual liberal legal pundits who insisted that such a release of grand jury information by Starr to the House would violate the Constitution were wrong again. Professor Dershowitz. Moreover, the president, through his lawyer David Kendall, has no recourse. The court gave its imprimatur to Starr's release of this information to Congress. Congress has a constitutional duty to consider the information as part of a possible impeachment process. There is no court that Clinton go to where he can successfully block Congress from reviewing and even releasing any or all of this report. And that's what they wanted to do. The reason Starr wanted this report was to say, you can't release this. And Starr went around him. He gave it to the House 2 days early, thwarted Kendall's efforts to get this thing tied up, future delay. The president has delayed this whole thing long enough, folks. There is no more tolerance for this, either on this program or I'm sure with any of you. So let us see it all and stop playing games with this stuff as though we can't handle it. It's the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Nice to have you along, ladies and gentlemen, as we plod on into the uncharted waters with a great captain at the ship at the helm. 800-282-2882. And now, with great pleasure, welcome to the program, Georgia Congressman Bob Barr, who was the first to call for an impeachment inquiry way back long before we even heard the name Monica Lewinsky. Congressman, welcome. Thanks for making some time.
Thank you, Rush. It's always an honor and a pleasure not only to speak with you, but your many, many listeners across the country.
Well, I want to hear from you today, Congressman, because I must tell you, I heard Newt this morning shortly after 10 o'clock limit what can be said on the floor of the House, not in committee, but on the floor of the House, and he cited Jeffersonian rules. I then heard Congressman Hyde suggest that we will release the outline, the report itself, and the independent counsel's analysis, but none of the evidence. We're not going to release any of the tapes, either of Monica's answering machine, the president's testimony, or of the Linda Tripp, Monica Lewinsky tapes. None of the evidence is going to be released, maybe for 10 days, while we check to see that innocent people are not injured in the process. Congressman, it sounds to me like that the Republican leadership is trying to say to the Democrats, the liberals, and the American people, look, we're fair. We don't want to starve your kids. We don't want to poison your air and water. We're going to be fair about this. We're not going to criticize the president, and we'll try to withhold this evidence as long as we can to make sure this is entirely fair. It sounds to me like what's being set up here is the American people are being told some of this is not going to be released, especially the evidence. Now, I'm of the opinion the evidence will speak for itself, that the American people are sophisticated enough and mature enough to deal with it. Do you know of any effort to hold this back, and if so, why?
Well, these are all very good questions, Rush, and it goes back to some extent to the use of the term up here in Washington of bipartisan. Something is bipartisan if you agree with me. If you don't agree with me, you're being partisan. And we have a lot of folks up here who are in a constant search for bipartisanship. I'm a prosecutor. To me, the evidence speaks for itself, as you said. And I don't think that we ought to be at all fearful, for any reason, to lay the evidence before the American people. They've bought and paid for it. We represent them. It's important for them to be a part of this process. So my vote, Bob Barr's vote, will be to release as much information as we can as quickly as possible. But there will be an effort, I suspect, to do precisely as you've indicated, at least initially simply to release the report itself, which is some 400 and some odd pages, which certainly is important, and that's a good first step. But if, in fact, the decision is made to withhold the rest of the information for an extended period of time, I think we're going to be asking for trouble, because it's going to inevitably start leaking out anyway, and we will therefore lose control over it. I think we ought to get it out before the American people and not be squeamish about it.
Well, it's troubling to me for this reason. For 7 months now, going on 8, the American people have had to listen to leaks. Sources close to the Starr investigation say, sources close to the White House say. We've had all of this material that has been parceled out on a bit by bit basis, but none of it we really know. It's all what has been released by people who have a vested interest in releasing that particular bit of information, whatever it was, and we got the accompanying spin with it. Now we got the evidence, and it seems to me what the independent counsel has done. He said, here's my report, and here's my analysis, and also, if you disagree with me, here's the evidence. You listen to the evidence, and you decide. Now, the notion that the American people are not capable of deciding it, the notion that they're not capable of hearing it and understanding it or dealing with it, we've heard about how it's going to make us all sick and so forth. I'll tell you, Congressman, you probably know this better than I do, that the American people are fed up with the privileged class in Washington circling the wagons and protecting each other during times of crisis like this on the basis the American people really don't need to know all these sordid details. But the fact is, after being put through this for 7 or 8 months, precisely because of a lie from the White House, which sustained it and has built all this curiosity, to now build people up and to deny them this is a political boondoggle of major proportions by the Republican leadership if they actually do this.
Well, I hope that we don't do that. There also is up here, of course, somewhat of a paternalistic attitude on some folks' part that, well, gee, there's going to be sordid details in here, and for some reason we think that members of Congress are better able to cope with this than the average citizen, which is certainly not at all true. If, in fact, though, Rush, there is a very quick way that we can get through the material simply to make sure that there are not some innocent names that might have been mentioned during the course of a phone conversation without holding up for days and days and days, just to make sure that there are no innocent names that might have been caught up in some other bit of evidence. I don't have any problem with that. But what I would have a problem with is, I think, what you're saying, and that is an effort to keep the information from the public as part of an effort to play in. I mean, the Democrats would love to have this stuff leaked out slowly so that it can be trivialized and draw us off track.
Well, the fact of the matter is, Congressman, the Democrats know exactly what this is. This is now a down and dirty political process. When David Kendall starts talking about the fairness of being able to see the report, anybody with any knowledge of the law knows that that's nothing but spin, that there is no right that exists anywhere. No defendant anywhere gets to see the indictment before it's handed down, and he knows it. He just wants to try to delay it. We've got now the situation that the Republican base is most afraid of about their leadership, and that is that when it comes time to play political hardball, they're going to wimp out. As I said in the first half hour of the program, it's like we've got the coffin halfway closed. We've almost got the body in there, but even if we had the nails, it doesn't seem like we got the will to start hammering.
Well, that's what is necessary in all of this. There are, I think, 29 of us that have signed on since last November to the inquiry of impeachment. I believe that there is not only great merit in having the backbone to and the confidence to lay all of this before the American people, but to be consistent about it. But unfortunately, those are qualities that sometimes seem in somewhat short supply up here.
Well, let me ask you this. The grand jury is still in session. The independent counsel continues his investigation. In fact, both grand juries, the one in Virginia, the one in D.C., are still operating, and there's talk now that there are going to be, not today, but indictments as a result of all this of people who are, of course, not the president, because that's an unresolved legal scholar question here, constitutional question as to whether sitting president can be indicted. But it does seem to me that Starr is playing this pretty brilliantly. He's sent the report up, but he's not going to simply rely on members of Congress to do with it as he would do if it were in his charge. He's going to continue with these investigations, and if he indicts some people that have ancillary roles in this or direct roles in it, that will speak volumes as well, especially coupled with whatever is contained in the report.
Well, it will, and hopefully they'll sort of track each other. The report that Kenneth Starr sent us yesterday, which is now the property of Congress, and there are no limitations whatsoever legally on what we can do with it. I think that's important for people to know. Whatever is done with that, it is entirely up to Congress, so we can't blame or put this burden off on anybody else. That is a separate part of what the independent counsel has done. He has a mandate to report this to the Congress, impeachable material. The bulk of his work, though, which has been going on for several years now, is in the judicial arena, and that is indictments. That is all a very different matter, and I think that there will be, as you've indicated, some very interesting proceedings yet to come from Mr. Starr's operation. This is almost a sidelight to the main thrust of his work, which is to investigate individuals on whom there is substantial evidence, not of impeachable offenses, but that the laws have been broken.
They put you in an uncomfortable position. Do you have the same fear I do that the leadership is timid here on how to proceed, and that they're... Well, and the reason I ask this, we've heard, and frankly, it's made me angry these past 7 months. The Republicans don't want this before the election. The Republicans don't want any part of this. They see these popularity polls of 65%. They don't want to deal with this. Now they've got it. Is there a way of not dealing with it to try to limit what can be said about it on the floor of the House and perhaps withhold some of the evidence itself? Or am I overreacting to this? Is actual statesmanship going on here, and I'm just assuming because of past experience that what is actually statesmanship is timidity?
Well, it's sometimes difficult in this town to tell. I think you've raised, these are very, very good questions. They're very legitimate ones. I have the very same fears, and I see evidence still today that much of what happens up here, many of the decisions that are in the process of being made, are being made based not on the hard, cold evidence and on our constitutional authority, but some effort to be liked, whether it's to be liked by Dick Gephardt or to be liked by the national media.
Oh, no. It still hasn't moved past that yet.
I still see elements of that, unfortunately.
Well, what's your best guess? I mean, you're there. You're closer to it than any of us. What does your gut tell you is going to happen? We're going to get the release tomorrow. That seems to be fairly certain. Congressman Hyde said that Mr. Solomon, who chairs the Rules Committee, has the intention, the desire to release all the evidence, save for those mentions that need to be redacted, such as names Monica might have mentioned of innocent people on her answering machine tape and that sort of thing. And you said that you think that this stuff will leak out anyway, the evidence. If that's the only way it gets out, then well, hooray for leaks. But,
well, in a sense.
But what's your guess? What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, I think that the way you've put it forward probably is the way in which a lot of folks are leaning right now, to release the initial report itself, which is an important first step. But what I'm afraid will happen is there will be a lengthy period of time before which the rest of the report is released, all of the background documentation and so forth. I'm not sure that it wouldn't be feasible to contact Mr. Starr's office and try and get some indication, for example, from his people as to where some of this information, he referred to it in his transmittal letter yesterday, that there could be some very sensitive material involving innocent people. If that is the case, then I don't understand perhaps why he couldn't indicate to us where that is so that we could exercise that if that indeed is the case. Just take out those names of innocent, irrelevant people whose names might have simply been mentioned. I'm not sure that would take any great period of time.
Well, maybe he thinks it's Congress's job to do it, not his. I think he wants to now force Kendall and the House into action against each other, and he can go on with his investigation.
Yeah, he has an awful lot of work to do with regard to seeking indictments of other individuals.
All right. Well, look, I'll tell you what. Thank you, Congressman, for your time. I appreciate it, and keep plugging away.
Well, you've raised some very good questions, as always, Rush, and anytime we can be of help, just holler.
Well, we're always watching.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Congressman Bob Barr from Georgia. Now, let's see. I got a call up there. Somebody thinks I'm being too harsh. Is that right, Mr. Snerdley? Being too harsh. Ooh, good. Okay. And somebody thinks that I'm, hold the reporter's bait. Okay, good. Good. Get some people to disagree with me on this. Well, we'll get to all that after we take this brief time out. My good friends, don't go away.
You're listening to the EIB Network. What disease strikes 30 million men every day, and nobody wants to talk about it? Sexual addiction. There is help. The 5-step program developed by the Center for Renewing America's Politicians can help get you back where you want to be. A former sex addict with his voice changed to protect his identity will tell you how.
The first step, and it is the hardest one, is to admit that you had an improper relationship. The second step, tell everyone involved that you said you apologized and are seeking help. Thirdly, attend support group meetings, in private with your lawyers, in public with a bunch of other sickos and losers. Hang your head low and cry a lot. The fourth step, announce that you're cured and ready to go back to work. And the fifth step, be more careful next time and don't get caught.
In the public interest, from the Center for Renewing America's Politicians.
You can be cured of sexual addiction, or look like you were.
I got the never-ending apologies there. That's all part of the cure. Of course, I guess they can't tell you everything. Otherwise, why charge you the money to enroll in the sexual addiction rehab clinic in the first place? 1-800-282-2882, Rush Limbaugh and the EIB Network. Let's go to St. Louis. Doug, hi. Glad you called.
Hello.
Yes.
I think you're overreacting a little bit here.
You do?
Yes. I agree with you about 99% of the time. But I thought I heard the speaker say that he was just trying to put a lid on personal attacks on the president until the committee reports back. He's just going by the process that's set up to do this.
What do you think about what Congressman Hyde said?
Well, that's more of a problem.
Oh, how so?
I think everything ought to be released.
I do too. Well, I didn't tell you this.
I don't think the speaker is wimping out here. I think he's just taking the process step by step and doing what he needs to do.
Now, here come those senators, by the way. They've just come out of the I'm sorry meeting with the president. Daschle is now speaking. They're all gathered around looking morose. We'll have details of this as soon as we find out about it. Doug, let me tell you what I saw. After the president, or after the speaker announced the rules, which would by which they must conduct themselves on the floor of the House regarding comments about the president, a Republican, 1-minute speeches began. A Republican was identified. And he stood up to express solidarity with Paul McHale, the Democrat from Pennsylvania who's called for the president's resignation and who has summarily been trashed by the White House via the Geraldo Rivera show regarding his military performance, his medals, and so forth and so on. And when this member of Congress, this Republican, stood up to express solidarity with McHale and comment on how McHale had been summarily trashed and smeared by the White House, the Speaker pro tem, a woman, female member of Congress, said, you cannot say those kinds of things about the President of the United States. Now, we know that it came from the White House. We know because Geraldo Rivera said so. He was just expressing solidarity for McHale and was told that he couldn't, under the rules, he couldn't say what he had said because it was constituted a personal attack.
Well, that's pretty close to the line.
Well, it is close.
I'm not going to defend that sort of calling where the line is.
All right.
But I think Newt was not too far off base in saying, wait for the committee, the Judiciary Committee, to report its findings before we launch into all these political attacks, because they're going to come.
All right.
No one's going to hold back when it gets there, I think.
Well, I hope not. I hope you're right. Here's another one, Jim in Chicago, if we can get to it quickly. Yes, we can. Hello.
Hi, Rush. I don't often disagree with you, but this time I think the GOP is correct. I think that these 2,000 pages are perfect resignation bait. This is the way to get the Democrats to do the dirty work. They're going to have to force him to resign. As they go through this evidence, there will be a Democrat with them. They'll know exactly what's in there. If it's released right away, there's no face left to save. Do you remember what Sun Tzu said? Never corner your opponents. You always leave them a way out so that you can take everything intact.
Sun Tzu, The Art of War.
Yes, the politics of this are perfect. The GOP looks like statesmen. The Democrats are forced to do the dirty work. He's going to be gone by the end of the month, Rush. Jim,
I'll bet you a newsletter subscription on that.
I'll bet you a newsletter.
Okay, I'll bet you a newsletter subscription, and you send me.
I'll send you cigars.
You send me a cigar. You send me $30 worth of cigars.
Okay.
All right.
I'll do that.
Now, hang on. I'm not going to let you.
I'm not going to let you slide either because I'm going to get the newsletter.
By the end of September,
I've been saying this since last week. I've called for the walk down by the Democratic leaders this week, too.
All right.
This has all been working out. There's no way that they could stop it now.
All right. Now, you hang on. Mr. Snerdley's going to get all your vitals.
All right, but let me finish a little bit.
Hang on. I got to take a break. We'll do it after the other side because we don't have much time here. Stay with us.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Tom Daschle was just asked, do you think the president will survive? Answer, I believe he will. No other senators spoke. Jim in Chicago. You have less than a minute. Make your final point. Go ahead.
Okay, Rush. All I'm saying is that the country will be better off if he's forced to resign instead of the prolonged impeachment. If he won't, In 10 days to 2 weeks, everything will be released, or at any time we choose.
This guy is not going to resign.
We hold neither was Richard Nixon, Rush, but he did. We hold all the cards here. We didn't pile on for 8 months. We wait for the Democrats to force him out. We stand back and reap the benefits. This is classic, and it will be taught in every political science class for generations.
All right.
Perfect.
We got your name and address and all that stuff?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so I'll be prepared to pay. I hope I do have to pay off, because there is a lust for justice out there that will not be quenched or thwarted. It's going to have to be satisfied one way or the other. There you have it. Jim thinks he's gone by the end of the month, and the Republicans are playing it strategically brilliantly. Back in a minute.